I'm Whitey Willauer, and this is the latest edition of Front Up, and we've got a wonderful guest here today, the town biologist, Tara Riley, and it's good to have you back on this program, Tara.
Thanks, Whitey.
And a lot of things have been happening since the last time you were here. You've gone through a propagation cycle, and how did that work out? Propagation of scallops. I got to be very careful because I want to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about.
Yeah, it went really well this year. We were able to set up a small-scale hatchery down at the Brant Point Boathouse, and then we were also able to do multiple spawns with the bay scallop. We did some spawns with the classics and some spawns with the nub scallops also. And we were also able to do some quahog spawns. So it was a little bit more than I had anticipated for the year. It was a very busy summer, but it went really well.
Now you said nub scallops. Well, what is a nub scallop?
The nub scallop is a scallop that is generally spawned in the fall, and so it's a little bit different in its growth pattern. So we took some of these smaller scallops just to see if we were able to reproduce them, and we were in fact able to do it. So it went actually pretty well.
So nub scallop is, the scallops only live what, 22, 24 months, something like that, so that they live over 2 winters, and then we harvest them on the second winter because they're going to die off anyway.
Exactly.
But if you had a nub scallop, would be born late, so it might survive and respawn in the 3rd year of its summer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got it now. I think I understand. It's taken me many years to figure out the difference. And you're doing something unique here as far as the hatchery is concerned that we haven't done before. And I guess that's growing the scallops from the spat all the way until you release them in the harbor. Yeah, so you can tell me a little bit about that.
This summer we tried out a larval release strategy where we took scallops and we spawned them in the boathouse, and we raised them until they're about 10 days old, and that's when they go through metamorphosis and they look for a substrate to settle on. And so what we did is we took an oil boom and we put it out in quays, and we actually put some spat bags within the boom, and then we released our larvae into that boom. And I think we released about 5.3 million larvae into the boom. And then we also had a control boom on the side where we didn't release anything. And right now we just collected those spat bags this week, and we're doing the counts right now and kind of evaluating how that worked. One of the problems we ran into this year is the timing. The hatchery, it took a little while to get that started, so by the time we did the release, it was the end of July, and that's right around the time when we started to see the rust tide that came in, and it was right in the area where we were releasing the larvae, and that could be pretty detrimental to our project. So I think next year when we do it, we'll do it a lot earlier in the season in June, where we don't have to worry about that rust tide harming our...
Will you be able to figure out what the impact of the rust tide is on your scallop?
I think we will. You know, we have a spat bag monitoring program going on throughout the entire harbor, so I think the data from all the different areas and the area where we had our project going on, I think we'll be able to tell if there was an effect based on the same bags that we had out during the time that we did the larval release.
And when you use the word substrate, what is a substrate?
Well, we have these spat bags, and they are 1.5 millimeters in a mesh size, and inside of that bag we have something called netron, and it's just like a plastic mesh that they like to settle on. They're just looking for something. It's like an alternative to eelgrass.
And eelgrass is their preferred habitat.
It is. When the scallops are before they go through metamorphosis, they're in the upper 1 to 2 foot of the water column, so they're kind of floating, and just by having those spat bags that float on the water on the top, it just kind of gives them an option to settle right there before they drop down.
And there was a lot of rain last summer, not this summer, but the previous summer. And isn't there a theory that the rain might be causing the scallops not to settle properly?
I think whenever you have a lot of rain, you can have a decrease in temperature, maybe at the decrease in salinity, possibly at the surface of the water, which can affect some of the larvae, that are at the top. Decreases in salinity can also affect the way they feed, so it can affect their growth. and maybe could be a reason why maybe the meat size was a little bit small last year.
That's
also.
right. The meat size was So when you got a bushel, the bushel only yielded, say, 5 pounds of scallops, when it usually would yield 8 to 9.
Right.
So that might have been caused by
it could be one of the causes. The other cause is, the rust tide that we've had for the past 2 years that kind of impairs their feeding ability also.
So that would stunt their growth rather than kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It does kill, smaller larvae, the smaller ones, but the adults, it does impair their feeding.
And what are some of the other problems as far as the scallop life is concerned? What are the other?
There are lots of issues as far as the scallop life is concerned. The main one is probably water quality. You really need to have some good healthy water, which I think we do here around the harbor. Certainly we have our issues. The other one is the eelgrass habitat, so it's really important that we're able to maintain and restore the eelgrass for the scallops.
So it hits us from 2 different angles, the water itself and the impact on the scallop, and the fact that the water quality impacts the eelgrass. So it's a double whammy.
It definitely is.
Yeah, yeah. And so there's a lot of work going on, as our previous guest mentioned, in trying to improve the water quality. But that isn't the only problem out there.
It's not the only problem. There's lots of factors that play into a bad scallop season, or the problems that we're
temperature, predators. How about the cone jellyfish? You figured what they're doing?
I haven't figured that out yet, so that might be a question to ask someone else.
Okay, well, I don't think anybody knows. You're at the pointy end of the whole problem. Now, what are your plans for next year as far as propagation is concerned?
My plans for next year are to start a little bit earlier. Now that we have the hatchery established, I'm going to start up in January with our algae growth, and then I'm going to start spawning the shellfish. I've got a group of broodstock. I have scallops, quahogs, and oysters right now at the boathouse that I'll start conditioning in January, and it'll take probably about 6 to 8 weeks for them to condition, and then we'll be ready to spawn them. So we'll be able to spawn them during a time when they're not normally spawning in the harbor because of the cold water temperature. So, if we can spawn them in the boathouse and heat the water and keep them alive until the water warms up a little bit in the harbor, then we'll be that much further ahead as far as, doing our restoration efforts.
And that would be before the predators got a hold. You could put these spat or whatever you call them, larvae, in the harbor in your booms, and then after they feel like it, they drop down and go find some place to hang on.
Yeah.
And how big an area would they be covering?
The oil booms?
No, the actual spat. Do they just float around, or do they swim around?
Yeah, they kind of come and go with the current and the tide. So it's really tough. Once you do a larval release, it's tough to monitor the success of it, which is why we kind of deployed the oil booms to try and contain them to see, so we can monitor the success and get some data out of that.
Now, I gather you're involved with the Shellfish Management Plan, and that's a new effort. Tell me a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, the Shellfish Management Plan it's one of the priority recommendations from the Nantucket and Madaket Harbor Action Plan. So we decided that it's a good time to institute it. It's a good way for us to kind of develop some guidelines and some goals to manage our fishery so that it is able to be sustainable for the future. And
how are you going to have a public hearing in the near future? How are you going
We have developed a board and a committee. We have a chairman and elected officers. And our first public meeting is going to be November 10th at 4 o'clock. I believe it's at 2 fairgrounds. That's still a little tentative. But it's basically going to be an introductory meeting where we're just going to discuss the purpose of the Shellfish Management Plan and just the different components of it. And we're going to have several people speak and give presentations, and then we'll open it up to the public for comment and suggestions.
Now, you have a consultant that you've hired that is helping you or running this Shellfish Management Plan. That's Urban Harbors Institute?
It is.
And they were the ones that helped us with the harbor plan. And so are they going to be writing everything, or how's that going to work?
I hope so. I think basically we are going to be gathering as much information as we can. Part of the SMP is to really go into and dissect the historical background of the shell fishing here on Nantucket. And just get all of the historical information. We want to get all the propagation information, stuff that we're currently doing, and come up with ideas for stuff that we want to do in the future as far as restoration goals.
Trying to figure out, break the code of the scallop and figure out what is causing this upward and downward as far as the harbor is concerned.
Right. We really want the community to be involved in this. We're asking commercial fishermen, the recreational folks, anyone who likes to eat seafood, anyone that has an interest in the harbor or marine biology, just to come to these meetings and be involved and give their input. It's really important.
Yeah, there's a lot of historical knowledge that goes way back that you need to capture somehow and put into. I think that result's going to be very interesting, because when I was selling tickets on Main Street, everybody would come up to me, well, what's causing the scallops to not be here this year? And that's a very difficult question to answer. We had a bunch of things that went wrong last year.
It is. It's going to be interesting talking to the commercial guys and some of the people that have been around for a long time and hearing their perspectives on everything.
Now, you've actually gone out and fished.
I have. I'm looking forward to going out in a couple weeks, too.
Are you going to go out opening day?
I am.
Who are you with?
I'm going with Matt.
Matt Herr.
Matt Herr. Yep.
Well, that's great. I'm going to go with Smitty.
Oh, nice.
I enjoy that, because you begin to get the scuttlebutt and you begin to see where people think they're going to have the best fishing. And have you looked at the harbor now, and how does it look?
The harbor looks pretty good. I've been diving and snorkeling in quite a few areas. I think it's going to be a difficult year. It's tough to tell based on the recreational people that have been out there. Until the commercial guys get out there and start dredging, it's really kind of hard to tell what type of season it's going to be. But based on Mariah Mitchell's results and kind of what we've seen and with the blooms and stuff that have gone on, I think it's going to be a little difficult.
Yeah. That some people would come up to me on Main Street saying, I got 3 scallops, and somebody said, well, I got a bushel. And it varied quite a bit. So it's everybody in the community is interested, but no one knows the answers, and I think that's where you're headed, is what are the causes and how can we fix them?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's you've got a wonderful opportunity here.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
And when is your first year anniversary here?
December 7th.
I see. Pearl Harbor Day.
I made it a year.
You haven't? Yeah, well, that's great.
Almost.
And before, you were in the hatchery business? Yep.
I was in Chariton, Virginia, working for a private commercial hatchery, raising clams and oysters.
And so we're going to get some more clams and oysters here.
I hope so. It's definitely one of my passions, so we need to increase what's out there.
Now, if I failed to ask any questions I should have asked?
No, I think you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you.
I was a little worried what you might ask.
Well, like what?
I don't know.
So anyway, well, thank you very much, and appreciate your being here. And best of luck with your propagation and also with your shellfish management plan.
Well, thank you, Whitey.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.